1. Introduction. My name is Bella. I paint pictures for my job. I am 26 years old. Last month, I moved to a new place. I chose a small, quiet town. I rented a house there. The house was small, but it had a very big garden. I thought it was perfect for my painting work. I felt very happy and excited about this change. I wanted to start my new life immediately in the sunshine. I planned to use the garden as my outdoor studio. I felt excited to finally have space for all my large paintings and colorful supplies. But there was one problem right next door. My neighbor lived in the house next to mine. His name is John. He looked older than me, maybe 35 years old. John worked as a banker in the city. He wore expensive, dark suits every day. His shoes were always polished. He drove a black car. His car was always very clean and shiny. John never smiled. He seemed very serious and distant. He looked like a man who followed every rule. On the day I arrived, I was busy unpacking many heavy boxes. I played music loudly to help me work and stay motivated. I love music when I paint and unpack. Suddenly, I heard a very loud, sharp knock on my door. I stopped the music and opened the door quickly. John was standing there. His face was cold and hard like stone. "The music is too loud," he told me. He did not ask nicely. He just stated a fact with a cold voice. I felt surprised by his directness and lack of warmth. I looked at him closely. He was very tall and quite handsome, but his serious coldness made me feel nervous. I apologized and turned the music down immediately. I did not want trouble on my first day. This first meeting showed how different we were. I am an artist who loves bright colors, loud noise, and creative mess. My life is often chaotic, full of paint and energetic movement. John is a banker who loves silence and strict order. His house looked neat and perfectly organized, like a magazine picture. My house already looked chaotic, full of art supplies and bright fabrics everywhere. I felt a strong clash between my colorful lifestyle and his cold silence. I knew that we were opposites living side by side. He was the serious banker, and I was the wild artist. I wondered if we could ever be good neighbors. I hoped the music complaint was the last problem, but I feared it was only the start of our trouble. It was clear he did not like my happy, messy way of life. 2. The angry neighbor. For 2 weeks, John and I were not friends. We were enemies. I loved color and noise. John loved silence and order. It was a difficult time. We lived next to each other, but we did not speak nice words. I spent many hours painting in my garden. The garden was a perfect place for my art. I used big brushes and bright colors. Sometimes I made a mess. My paint was everywhere. One day, I was painting a large picture of the sky. I moved my brush quickly. A drop of blue paint went over the line. It landed on John's clean, white fence. John saw it. He came outside immediately. He walked to the fence line. His arms were crossed over his chest. He looked very serious. "Bella," he said. His voice was cold. "You are messy. Look at my fence. You have no order in your life." He always used words like messy and order. He did not like my lifestyle. I felt angry when he talked this way. I wanted to shout at him, but I stopped myself. I looked closely at his face. He was handsome even when he was mad. I looked into his eyes. They were blue like the paint drop on his fence, but I did not see anger in his eyes. I saw deep sadness. This was a surprise to me. I thought John was just a mean man. I thought he hated everything colorful and fun. But the sadness in his eyes was real. It was a secret pain. I realized something important. John was not mean. He was lonely. He stood alone in his clean garden. He had nobody to talk to. I looked at the small blue spot on his fence. He cared so much about that small spot. Maybe he focused on small things because the big things in his life were broken. He wanted everything to be perfect outside because he felt terrible inside. I understood him a little better now. He was a lonely banker living in a quiet house. I was the new, loud artist. I brought chaos to his ordered world, but maybe he needed a little chaos. I stopped feeling angry at him. I started to feel sorry for him. I wanted to help him. I wanted to see him smile. It felt strange, this sudden feeling. I knew I could not be enemies with John anymore. I looked away from his sad eyes. I thought about how I could fix this problem. It was time to stop fighting. It was time to try to be his friend. 3, a sweet cake. I decided it was time to make peace. I thought about John's sad eyes. He was not just an angry neighbor. He was a lonely man. I wanted to help him feel better. I decided to bake a cake. A chocolate cake is always a good way to start a friendship. I spent 1 hour making the cake perfect. I made sure it smelled very sweet and looked beautiful. I wanted this cake to show him I was serious about ending the hostility. I put the fresh cake on a small white plate. I walked slowly to John's house. I knocked on his big wooden door. The sun was setting, making the sky orange and pink. John opened the door quickly. I noticed he was not wearing his usual banker suit. He wore a simple, soft blue t-shirt and dark pants. He looked very different. He looked softer, younger, and more real. I smiled at him. "I brought peace," I said clearly. I held out the chocolate cake. John looked at the cake and then he looked into my eyes. He did not smile, but he did not complain either. He stepped back and invited me inside his house. "Come in, Bella," he said. His voice was quiet. His house was extremely clean. Everything was perfectly ordered, but the rooms felt empty. There were very few things on the walls and no colorful items. We walked into the kitchen. We sat down at his large, clean kitchen table. We cut the cake and started eating it. It was rich and delicious. As we ate, we began to talk. We talked for almost 2 hours. John told me many personal things. He told me he spent too much time working at the bank. He admitted he was a workaholic. He said he had forgotten how to relax and enjoy simple things in life. He also told me about his marriage. He explained that he was divorced. His wife left him because he cared more about his job than about her. He looked down at the table, feeling deep sorrow. "I forgot how to live happily," he whispered to me. I understood him much better now. He was not cold, he was just hurt and lonely. I wanted to show him that I cared about his pain. I slowly reached across the table. I gently touched his hand. His hand was large and felt warm under mine. When I touched him, John looked up at me quickly. He did not move his hand away. I saw the sadness in his eyes begin to soften. He seemed to relax completely for the first time since I met him. We sat there, close together, in the quiet kitchen. I felt a real connection between us. For the big storm, 2 days after we shared the sweet cake, the weather changed completely. A very heavy storm came to our small town. The sky turned dark very fast. The rain was extremely strong, and the wind blew hard against the houses. I was inside my house, trying to continue my painting. The light was good for only a few more minutes. Suddenly, the power failed. The lights went out with a loud pop sound. Everything was dark. I stood still in the middle of the room. I was truly scared of the total darkness. The wind sounded like a monster outside the windows. The glass in the windows rattled hard, like they might break at any moment. I felt alone in the scary noise. Then I heard a loud banging noise at my front door. It was John. I quickly opened the door. He stood outside, already soaking wet from the rain. He held a small, bright flashlight. The light cut through the dark night. "Are you okay, Bella?" he shouted over the noise of the wind. I was shaking a little from fear and cold. "The power is out here," I managed to say. He nodded quickly. "I know, you must come to my house now. I have a generator. I have lights and heat." A generator makes electricity when the main power is off. "You will be warm and safe with me." I did not hesitate. I ran out the door and into the terrible rain with him. John put his arm around my back to guide me. We ran across the wet garden to his front door. The rain hit my face like small stones. My thin clothes stuck to my skin right away. We were soaking wet from head to foot. John held my arm tightly so I would not fall on the slippery grass. We reached his house and stepped inside quickly. John closed the door against the chaos of the storm. His house felt immediately warm and bright. The generator hummed softly in the background. The living room was simple but felt very comfortable. John gave me a big, dry towel. I rubbed my hair and face with it. We stood close together in the warm room, breathing hard from running. The wet clothes made us feel cold, but the closeness made us feel warm inside. I looked at John. He was wet too, but he seemed completely calm. His eyes were not sad now. They were caring and focused only on me. Water dripped from my wet hair onto his clean wooden floor. The strong wind and rain continued outside, but inside we were quiet. I felt completely protected next to him. This big storm forced us to be together, 5, safe at night. The storm was very loud outside. We stood close in the warm living room. John looked at me. His eyes were deep and serious. He saw the water dripping from my hair. I could not speak. I held my breath. John moved his hand slowly. He reached out and touched my wet cheek. It was a soft, warm touch. He said my name, Bella. His voice was very quiet. Then he leaned down toward me. He kissed me for the first time. The kiss was long and slow. It felt like a strange mix of feelings. It was hot like fire, but cool like ice. My body felt warm and cold all at once. It was a wonderful feeling. I knew that I did not want to leave him that night. The storm outside was still very bad. We decided to stay together in his house. It was the safest place to be. We went to his bedroom. We did not speak much. We only looked at each other with quiet eyes. We lay down on the bed. We just held each other tightly. I put my head on his chest. I could hear his heart beat. It was a strong, steady sound. I felt his arms around me. His arms felt strong and safe. This was not a night for fast action. It was a sweet night. It was a very special night for both of us. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely protected. I was usually a brave person, but I needed this safety. John was not just a serious banker anymore. He was my protector. I thought about the weeks before. We were angry neighbors. We sometimes threw harsh words at each other. Now we were here holding hands. It felt like a wonderful dream. I moved closer to him on the bed. He kissed the top of my head softly. I closed my eyes. I felt the deep comfort of his body next to mine. The storm continued to make loud noise, but I did not hear it anymore. I only heard John's breathing. I thought about his sad eyes from Chapter 2. I thought about the chocolate cake we shared in Chapter 3. I thought about the dark fear I felt when the power went out in Chapter 4. All those small moments led us here. I knew that I was falling in love with this serious, quiet man. He was very different from me, but we fit together well. My colorful life needed his quiet strength. His lonely life needed my bright light. I felt safe. I felt loved. I felt like I was exactly where I should be. I smiled in the dark room. I did not worry about the morning. I did not worry about the neighbors or the town. I only worried about this moment. I held his hand tighter. I finally fell asleep in his arms. It was the best sleep I had in many years. I dreamt of color and quiet working together. 6 people talk. The next morning came after the big storm. The sun was very bright. I felt warm and happy inside. I walked out of John's front door. I wore the same clothes from the day before. I smiled because of the sweet night. But then I saw her. Mrs. Gable lived across the street. She was an old woman who watched everything. She was standing by her window. She saw me leave John's house early in the morning. Mrs. Gable loved to share information. She told everyone. By the time it was lunch, the whole street knew our secret. People started to whisper about us. They talked about the wild painter and the serious banker. When I walked to the small shop, people looked at me. They stopped talking when I came close. I heard them laugh after I walked away. They said mean things. They said my life was too colorful for John's quiet life. They said I was a bad influence. They said our relationship was only a silly story that would end soon. John heard all of this talk too. I saw the change in him immediately. He became very distant and cold. He stopped looking at me. He stopped saying good morning when we were outside. I tried to ask him what was wrong one evening. I walked near the fence. "John, why are you acting this way?" I asked him. My voice was quiet. He looked very sad. He did not look into my eyes. "People are talking about you, Bella," he said. "The town is small. This is my fault. I am bad for your reputation." He thought he was helping me. He thought that if he pulled away, the bad talk would stop. He wanted to protect me by staying completely away. He started to work late again, just like before, but his silence felt like a deep cut. It hurt me more than the gossip. I felt confused and very lonely. I wanted him to stand strong with me. I did not want him to hide from the neighbors. I went back to my house. I sat down and felt terrible sadness. I thought about the night we shared. I thought about the feeling of safety I had in his arms. Now that feeling was gone. John was replacing the warmth with coldness. I missed him already. I missed his hand and his smile. I did not care about Mrs. Gable or the small town's words. I only cared about him. I knew I had to do something. I could not let fear win our fight. I had to be brave and tell him that the town's talk did not matter to me at all. 7. Be brave. I felt very bad. My heart hurt because John was suddenly cold to me. He did not talk to me anymore. I tried to walk past his house, but he looked away. I thought about the nice moments we shared. I remembered the sweet cake and the warm kiss during the big storm. I realized that I missed him very much. Then I started to think clearly. Why was I letting other people decide my life? The neighbors were talking, but their words were just noise. I realized that my own fear was controlling me. I was afraid of the gossip. I was afraid of losing John. I decided that I could not let fear win. I wanted happiness more than I wanted quiet neighbors. I had to be strong. I had to fight for the man I wanted. I decided to talk to John right away. I needed to be brave. I walked over to his house. I did not knock on the door. I waited outside in his driveway. I waited for a long time. The sun was going down and the air was getting cold. I stood there until I heard his car. John drove his clean black car into the driveway. He looked surprised to see me standing there. He stopped the car and turned off the engine. He looked sad and tired. He did not smile at me. "Why are you hiding?" I asked him quickly. My voice was loud and firm. John looked down at his hands. "Bella, I am doing this for you," he said softly. "The people are talking. I am ruining your name. You deserve better. I am boring and old. I am not good for you." I walked closer to him. I was not angry, just sure of myself. "Stop saying that," I told him. "I do not care what I deserve. I care about what I want." I reached out and put both of my hands on his face. His skin felt warm under my fingers. I looked straight into his deep eyes. "I do not care about the gossip," I said slowly. "I do not care about Mrs. Gable or the other people in town. Their opinions do not matter to me. Only you matter." I moved closer to him. "I want you, John. I want you more than I care about protecting my reputation. I want to be with you. I am not afraid of the talk. Are you afraid of me?" I asked. He did not answer right away. He just looked at me for a long time. I kept my hands on his face. I waited for him to speak. I knew this moment was the start of something new or the end of everything. 8. A new life? John looked into my eyes for a long time. He looked very serious. Then his face changed completely. The sadness and the fear went away. A big, bright smile appeared on his face. He hugged me very tightly. He lifted me up off the ground easily. I felt happy and light in his arms. "I was a fool to care about the town's talk," he admitted. "I love you, Bella. I want you with me." We decided that the opinions of the neighbors did not matter anymore. We would live our life together. The first thing we did was remove the fence between our houses. It was a big job. We worked together for 2 days, using tools and pulling wood. When the fence was gone, we had one big, beautiful garden. We shared the space completely. Our lives began to mix together. John learned to enjoy my colorful art. He often sat outside while I painted. He asked me questions about the colors I chose. He learned that art was not messy, it was freedom. I, the loud artist, learned to enjoy quiet moments. Sometimes I drank coffee in silence with John early in the morning. I learned that silence was not cold, it was peace. We were very different, but we were better together. 6 months passed quickly. Our shared life felt easy and good. John still worked at the bank, but he always came home early. He was no longer the cold banker I had met on the first day. He was warm, kind, and funny. He helped me carry my big canvases and set up my easel in the garden. He looked happier than ever before. One evening, the sun was going down, making the garden orange and red. We were standing in the middle of the grass. John held my hands. He looked nervous, just like the day he brought me the chocolate cake. He smiled deeply at me. Then he got down on one knee. He held a small box in his hands. He asked me to be his wife. I felt joy rush through me. I did not need to think about the answer. I said yes immediately. I moved my things from the house next door into his home. I was no longer just the neighbor. I was his family. We started a new life together, full of color and calm, right where we first met.